Mike Pence was unafraid to be a Christian warrior. He was unafraid to call for a national abortion ban when other members of his party shied away from the issue. But then Mike Pence was asked about in vitro fertilization.
There are people who are concerned that if you start with abortion access restrictions, that it will also lead to restrictions on IVF treatment. If you believe life begins at conception, you can make that argument. Should it be protected as a right?
The vice president began his answer with details about his and his wife's struggles with fertility and their use of IVF to conceive their children. And that led Mike Pence to this.
But I fully support fertility treatments, and I think they deserve the protection of the law. They gave us great comfort in those long and challenging years that we struggled with infertility in our marriage.
Mike Pence was a sign that Republicans should have better heeded. Overturning Roe would lead to all kinds of unforeseen consequences, consequences that even the most die-hard Christian conservatives would have a hard time reconciling, consequences that would affect even their families. Now, whether Republicans wanted to bury their heads in the sand or whether they truly believed that the Christian conservatism they had injected into American law would not wreak havoc in untold ways, it appears now that they have no plan to deal with any of this. The Alabama Supreme Court ruled last week that embryos are children, and that decision has already caused multiple clinics in the state to pause their in vitro fertility services, which is just a devastating development for families in that state who are eager to have children. And even though this is only happening in Alabama so far, the political implications are vast. Because as it turns out, a lot of people across the country need fertility care, and they're not just Democrats. The New York Times estimates that over 7 million women had reported receiving infertility care, citing a CDC survey from 2019. 12% of American women. Women undergoing IVF are most likely high income and white, and they have at least some higher education. Last year, former Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway warned congressional Republicans about the political disaster that was looming in the wake of the Dobbs decision. Her polling showed that 86% of American voters support IVF. Among people who call themselves pro-life, IVF has 78% support. And among evangelicals, the Mike Pences of this country, 83% of them support it. Republicans, independents, wealthy women, white women, all of them overwhelmingly support in vitro fertilization and are also incredibly likely to be affected by any restrictions imposed upon it. Which is why elected Republicans right now have no good answer, or rather it's why they have no answer at all. Here is this senior senator from the state of Alabama, Tommy Tuberville.
Do you have a reaction to the Alabama Supreme Court ruling on the fact that embryos are children?
Yeah, I was all for it. We need to have more kids. We need to have an opportunity to do that. And I thought this was the right thing to do. But
IVF is used to have more children, and right now IVF services are paused at some of the clinics in Alabama. Aren't you concerned that this could impact people who are trying to have kids?
Well, that's for another conversation. People need to have. We need more kids. We need the people to have the opportunity to have kids.
Senator, what do you say to the women right now in Alabama who no longer have access to IVF, or who will not, as a result of this ruling? What do you say to them?
Well, that's a hard one. It really is. It's really hard. Because, again, you want people to have that opportunity. And that's what I was telling her. We need more kids.
Someone should tell the senator that if he wants people to have more kids, he might not want to support a decision that prevents people from having more kids. Yesterday morning, former Governor Nikki Haley appeared to agree with the Alabama ruling, telling NBC News that embryos are babies. And then yesterday evening, she clarified that she did not agree with the Alabama ruling.
I didn't say that I agreed with the Alabama ruling. What the question that I was asked is, do I believe an embryo is a baby? I do think that if you look in the definition, an embryo is considered an unborn baby. And so, yes, I believe from my stance that that is.
The obfuscation here, the cluelessness, belies one fundamental truth that Republicans know well. This is a losing issue for them. When abortion rights, when reproductive rights are on the ballot, Democrats win. This has happened over and over and over again since the Dobbs ruling in Kentucky, in Ohio, and Pennsylvania. And if Republicans know this truth, so do Democrats. Vice President Kamala Harris addressed the Alabama decision this afternoon.
The irony of it all is that on the one hand, these proponents are suggesting that an individual and a woman does not have the right to end an unwanted pregnancy, and on the other hand, does not have the right to become pregnant if that is her choice and her desire and her dream.
You will be hearing a lot of that in the next 9 months. In a statement today, President Biden's campaign manager said that what is happening in Alabama right now is only possible because Donald Trump's Supreme Court justices overturned Roe v. Wade. In the meantime, Donald Trump will be speaking tonight at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention in Nashville, Tennessee, just about 85 miles away from the state of Alabama. Whether he is asked about abortion and IVF is unknown, but either way, he'd better come up with an answer.